the day a total solar eclipse was observed across Japan. Something changed since that day. Laughing Day. That day, I was exhausted from the night shift at the convenience store and was greedily napping in my room from midday. With the curtains drawn shut and the door locked to keep my little sister from bothering me, I planned to sleep soundly until dinner. Suddenly, a sound woke me up. Voices coming from outside the window. Laughter. And not just one or two people, I could hear at least 5 or more voices laughing outside. What the hell? Are they watching TV at full volume or something? It's loud enough to reach the neighbor's house. Assuming it was probably coming from the house next door, I felt annoyed at having my sleep disturbed. I pulled the blanket over my head, trying to fall back asleep. But then, I heard the sound of someone rushing up the stairs from the first floor to my room on the second. And then, the soft knocking echoed in the room, and I poked my face out from under the blanket. What now? Is it already time for dinner? It didn't feel like I'd been asleep for long, but I couldn't think of any other reason why my family would come to wake me. With that thought, I groggily glanced at the clock by my pillow. It was 4:08 p.m. As expected, it was still way too early. "Big brother, the sun is amazing." From the other side of the door came my little sister's excited voice. It seemed the one knocking was my 3rd grade sister. The sun. Come to think of it, wasn't there something about that? My mind was foggy, and I couldn't quite piece my thoughts together. My brain was still craving sleep. Ignoring my sister's voice, I pulled the blanket back over my head, determined to continue my nap. But then, a louder knock interrupted me. "Cody, come on, take a look! It's a total solar eclipse!" At my mother's words, I remembered that a total solar eclipse was supposed to happen today. Now that I thought about it, a few days ago, the news had mentioned that Japan would experience a total solar eclipse for the first time in over a decade, visible across almost the entire country. I recalled my mother and sister being very excited about it. That said, I wasn't particularly interested in the eclipse. More than anything, I was sleepy. Food over flowers, napping over an eclipse. But the knocking grew even more intense. "Get up, Cody, it's a total solar eclipse!" The voice from the other side of the door sent a jolt of unease through me, and this time I was fully awake. Sitting up in bed, I stared at the door being pounded on. That voice belonged to my father. But something was off. My father, like me, had shown no interest in the eclipse. More than that, he was usually a quiet man, and I had never heard him sound so excited before. Something was wrong. As I thought this, the knocking grew even louder, and I began to feel a creeping sense of fear. "Get up, big brother. Come look outside. The eclipse is going to end soon. Aren't you awake yet? Get up." The door shook violently, as if it might break, and my family's behavior was clearly not normal. A chill ran down my spine, and driven by a sense of danger, I shouted, "All right, I'll look!" As soon as I yelled back, the knocking and voices stopped abruptly. I felt a slight sense of relief, but instead of opening the curtains, I pulled the blanket over my head again. Then, suddenly, I heard the laughter of my 3 family members from a distance. My heart leapt into my throat. Judging by the direction of the voices, they were probably looking out the window at the end of the hallway. But their laughter, supposedly in response to the eclipse, was far too strange. It was as if something inside them had snapped. Their voices carried an almost crazed quality. And then I realized something that sent a shiver through me. The faint laughter I'd been hearing from outside all this time. It was the same as the laughter my family was making now. It wasn't just my family. The same thing was happening at the neighbor's house. My family was laughing. Laughing. Cackling. Laughing. What is this? What the hell is going on? I felt like I was losing my mind. To escape the laughter, I curled up tightly under the blanket, covering my ears with both hands. Desperately, I raised my own voice, trying to drown out the sound of their laughter. Eventually, I sensed the laughter had stopped, but I kept my eyes tightly shut and my ears covered, staying huddled under the blanket, holding my breath. Anomaly. When I came to, it was already night. The time was 6:40 p.m. It seemed I had fallen asleep at some point without realizing it. As expected, I no longer heard the sound of knocking on the door or that strange laughter, nor did I sense anyone's presence beyond the door. Even so, I cautiously opened the door and confirmed that no one was in the hallway before finally letting my guard down. Breathing a sigh of relief, I returned to my room when a sudden question crossed my mind. To begin with, was that even real? Was it a dream? It felt far too vivid for a dream, though. As I tilted my head in thought, I flinched when I heard my mother's voice from downstairs. But it was simply her calling to let me know dinner was ready. Next, I heard my younger sister reply, "Coming," as her footsteps pattered down the hallway and descended the stairs. It was the casual, familiar sound of everyday life. When I went to the living room, the scene was, as expected, perfectly ordinary. My father was reading the evening paper at the table, my mother was carrying dishes, and my sister was helping her. "What are you doing just standing there, Cody? Come on in already," my mother said, looking at me with a puzzled expression as I stood frozen at the living room entrance. Feeling a slight pang of embarrassment, I hurriedly went to help carry the dishes. After that, nothing unusual happened. My family showed none of the eerie behavior they had exhibited that evening. By the time dinner was over, I had concluded that what happened earlier must have been a dream. But, for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to ask my family about it. The next day, the university on Monday morning carried a sluggish atmosphere, as if everyone was still dragging from the weekend. I myself felt a bit heavy from oversleeping as I entered the classroom. Spotting a group of friends sitting together, I set my things down near them. "Morning." "Yo." "Hey, morning." "Sup?" Exchanging greetings with my friends, we chatted idly until the teacher arrived. "What's that? You spent your whole day off sleeping again. Can't help it, man. I was wiped from my night shift." "You've been working non-stop lately, huh?" "Yeah, well, I want that motorcycle ASAP." As we talked, I suddenly thought about bringing up what happened yesterday. I figured I'd tell my friends about that bizarre experience, which still left an unsettling knot in my chest, and let them laugh it off to ease my mind. So, get this. I had the weirdest dream yesterday while I was sleeping. A dream? Well, I'm not even sure if it was a dream or not. What's that supposed to mean? Okay, so I was napping, right? And my sister starts knocking on my door, going, "Big brother, the sun's amazing." I think she was talking about a total eclipse or something, but I was so tired, I ignored her. Then my mom joins in, and they're banging on the door like crazy. Eventually, even my dad gets in on it, all of them yelling, "Look at the eclipse!" The knocking gets louder, their voices get louder, and then I start hearing this creepy laughter. It freaked me out so much I hid under the covers, and when I came to, it was already night. I spilled the whole story in one go and glanced at my friends to see their reactions. And then, I froze. All three of my friends sitting in front of me were staring at me with completely blank, unnervingly expressionless faces. There wasn't a trace of emotion in their expressions, just wide-open eyes, unblinking, fixed on me. Their eerie expressions made me let out a choked sound from the back of my throat as I instinctively stood up. A beat later, embarrassed by my pathetic reaction, I reflexively glared at them. "What the hell, guys? Why are you—" I stopped mid-sentence as I noticed something. The classroom had fallen eerily silent. In the sudden stillness, I quickly looked around, and a chill ran through my entire body. It wasn't just my friends. Every single student in the classroom was staring at me with the same blank, expressionless faces. The group of loud girls who had been chattering just moments ago, the couple flirting without a care, the guy engrossed in his phone game, the student frantically copying homework. Every one of them had lifted their heads and was staring at me with lifeless, mask-like faces. All I could see were blank faces. The strangeness of it dwarfed even the unsettling memory of my family beyond the door yesterday. Overwhelmed by an intense sense of alienation, as if I'd suddenly stumbled into another world, and a crushing fear, I bolted out of the classroom. I ran through the university campus, heading straight for the main gate. The thought that the students from that classroom might chase after me kept me from stopping or looking back even once. I kept running until I reached the station, jumping onto a train just as it pulled into the platform. Only then did I finally stop. My breath was ragged. My heart felt like it would burst. But more than that, the goosebumps covering my body wouldn't subside. Ha! Letting out a heavy sigh, I leaned against the train door and slid down to the floor. I could tell the other passengers were giving me strange looks, but I didn't have the energy to care. All I could think about was that bizarre scene from earlier. The image of my friends' blank faces staring at me was burned into my mind, refusing to fade no matter how much time passed. A violent turn, Saturday. I was out shopping with my family of 4. Ahead, my mom and younger sister were excitedly holding up clothes, their voices lively. "So damn long," I muttered. We'd been in this clothing store for nearly an hour already. I wished they'd just decide what to buy, but experience told me rushing the women in this state would only backfire. So I kept my complaints to a quiet grumble. "Well, that's just how women's shopping is," my dad, standing beside me, responded to my muttering. I hadn't meant for him to hear, so I just nodded vaguely with a, "Yeah, I guess." "Still, I'm relieved," he added. "You seem to be doing okay. When your mom told me you'd been skipping university, I was worried." "Oh, yeah." Today's shopping trip was partly meant to lift my spirits, it seemed. Ever since I fled back home from university on Monday, I hadn't gone back. The thought of my friends' blank, serious faces made it impossible to muster the will to return. As a result, I'd holed up at home for 5 days straight, claiming I was feeling unwell. At first, my family might have bought the excuse, but after 5 days of me shutting myself in, it was no surprise they were starting to worry. "Sorry for making you guys worry." "Nah, university life can be tough. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but Your mom and I are here if you need us. Thanks. My usually reserved dad's words carried genuine concern, which hit me hard. But even so, I couldn't bring myself to talk about what happened that day. I was scared. The thought of what might happen if I told my family, if they too changed, was terrifying. That was so much fun! Let's come back again. My mom and sister walked hand in hand, chatting happily, while I walked beside my dad, trailing behind them. In the end, we'd been dragged along for more of their shopping spree, but it did distract me, I suppose. Though man, was I exhausted. Monday. What am I gonna do? Should I go back to university? No, the answer was obvious. Of course I should go. If I kept skipping, I'd end up failing the year. Since that day, none of my friends had shown up at my house or sent any weird messages. Maybe if I went back, they'd act like nothing happened, and things would be normal again. Perhaps what happened that day was just some kind of collective hysteria. But those blank faces were burned into my mind, impossible to shake. They were so unnervingly terrifying that even now a chill ran down my spine at the thought. What am I gonna do? I was lost in these thoughts, waiting at a crosswalk for the light to change, when a scream shattered my reverie. A man's voice, twisted with terror. Startled, I looked toward the sound. Across the intersection, on the opposite sidewalk, a salaryman stumbled into the street, practically tumbling over himself. A chill ran through me. It wasn't the fact that he'd jumped into the road that horrified me. It was the faces of the people on that sidewalk, staring at him. What? Blank faces. Those blank faces. The crowd waiting at the crosswalk, where the salaryman must have been standing moments ago, was now staring at his back with those same eerie, expressionless faces. In an instant, I understood. That salaryman was me, from that day. Just moments ago, he must have said it. That thing. And now he was trying to escape those blank faces. Ah! A large truck barreled toward the salaryman from the side. His face contorted with shock and panic, his legs tangling in fear as he desperately tried to flee. In what felt like slow motion, I noticed something. The truck's driver, visible through the windshield, a middle-aged man, was staring down at the salaryman with the same blank face. The truck didn't slow down as it plowed into the intersection. In an instant, the salaryman's body was sent flying. He hurtled several meters sideways, landing in the middle of the intersection in an unnatural position, completely still. I couldn't find words, stunned by the hit and run I'd just witnessed. But as a pool of red liquid spread around the crumpled salaryman, a single thought flashed through my mind like lightning. Ambulance. Driven by that thought, I instinctively reached for my phone, and then I froze. The people around me weren't moving. Every single person was facing the salaryman, standing perfectly still, just staring. The moment I realized this, my body locked up as if paralyzed. No way. This can't be real, right? This eerie silence felt all too familiar. That day in the classroom, when I said it, it was just like this. My breathing grew ragged. Moving only my eyes, I scanned my surroundings, and a tremor ran through me. Now, every single person at the intersection was staring at the salaryman with those blank faces. The pedestrian signal had turned green, but no one crossed. They just stood there, silently fixated on him. And it wasn't just the pedestrians. The people in the cars waiting at the signal didn't get out either. They, too, stared at the salaryman from inside their vehicles, their faces blank. What the hell? What the hell is this? My body shook uncontrollably as unanswerable questions screamed in my head. But I couldn't stay frozen like this. Every second that passed was reducing the salaryman's chances of survival. Damn it! Get it together! Get it together! Just call an ambulance with your phone. That's all you need to do. If you don't act now, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Desperately rallying myself, I finally moved. I pulled my phone from my pocket and switched it to emergency mode. With trembling fingers, I dialed 119 and pressed it to my ear. 119, Fire Department. Is this a fire or a medical emergency? Someone's been hit by a truck. That's as far as I got. My mom and sister, standing in front of me, turned around. Blank faces. They were staring at me. No, not just them. My dad, standing beside me, was looking down at me with the same blank face. The person next to him, and the one next to them, and the one beyond that, and the one beyond that. Blank faces. Before I knew it, every single person at the intersection had shifted their gaze from the salaryman to me. My throat seized up, words failing me. The voice on the other end of the call was saying something, but I couldn't process it. The words passed through my ears as meaningless noise. Driven by sheer terror, I bolted. Head down, shoving through the crowd, I ran and ran, desperate to escape everything, running for my life with no destination in mind. Blood separation. 1 week later. All right, we're heading out. Take care. If it starts raining, make sure to bring in the laundry, okay? Yeah, I got it, Grandpa. As I saw my grandparents off to the village community center, I flopped down onto the mat. Almost immediately, my eyelids grew heavy, probably from lack of sleep. Right now, I was staying at my maternal grandparents' house in the countryside. After escaping from my family, this was the first place that came to mind. I'd considered crashing at a friend's place outside of school, but at the time I just wanted to get as far away from my family as possible. Trusting my instincts, I hopped on a train and arrived at their house just past 9 p.m. Despite my worry that my family might have contacted them, my grandparents were surprised but warmly welcomed their unexpected visitor. I told them I'd run away from home after a fight with my parents and asked to stay for a while, begging them not to contact my family. To my surprise, they simply said, "Just make sure you get in touch with them soon so they don't worry too much, and let me stay without further questions." Since then, I'd been helping with chores and living as a guest in their home. But I knew this couldn't last forever. If I stayed too long, even my grandparents would start to worry and might reach out to my family. I could already imagine what would happen then. I've got to do something. Everyone was laughing. My family, my friends, and countless others around me were laughing hysterically, without pausing for breath, like broken machines. Fueled by a rising sense of dread, I forced myself to laugh along with them, desperate not to be left out. My breath is getting harder and my throat is starting to hurt. Still, they kept getting louder, their voices rising in intensity. I matched their volume, shouting until my throat felt like it would tear. It hurt. It was agony. I couldn't take it anymore. Finally, I reached my limit and doubled over, coughing violently. At that moment, the laughter around me stopped dead. "No, please don't. Stop it. No, 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 no." No matter how much I pleaded in my mind, my head lifted on its own. I didn't want to look. I wanted to close my eyes, but I couldn't. And then, the faces of everyone around me came into view. I jolted awake, back in the room of my grandparents' house. In front of me was the porch, and beyond it, the sprawling garden. Ha, ha! I sat up on the mat, trying to steady my ragged breathing. It's okay. It's okay. I reassured myself, trying to shake off the nightmare I'd just seen. Ever since that day, I hadn't been able to sleep properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those blank faces. My family, my friends, haunting me. The stress and sleep deprivation were starting to take their toll. If this kept up, I was going to lose it completely. Just then, I heard the sound of hurried footsteps coming from the garden. Hey, are you okay, Cody? You were shouting something awful. Grandma. It was my grandmother, coming in from the garden, where she'd likely been tending to her chores. She took off her hat and removed the towel from her shoulder as she stepped into the room. The sight of her worried face eased my tension slightly. Without thinking too deeply, I found myself asking, almost pleadingly, Grandma, the solar eclipse. I stopped short, realizing my mistake, and clamped my mouth shut. Huh? The eclipse? Too late. Her words sent a chill through me. Sweat beaded on my back, and my mouth went dry with tension. No, why did I bring it up? What do I do? Should I run? But before I could act, my grandmother spoke again. Oh, you mean the one about 2 weeks ago? What about it? What? I looked up quickly, and there was my grandmother, her face tinged with a curious expression, not that blank stare. Grandma? You didn't see it? No, I didn't. I was out picking wild vegetables in the mountains that day. Her slightly bewildered response broke something inside me. Grandma! I threw myself into her small frame, hugging her tightly as I broke down into sobs. Oh dear, what's wrong? Did you have a bad dream? As she stroked my head, I rested my chin on her shoulder and cried harder than I had in years. When I finally grew too exhausted to cry anymore, a wave of embarrassment hit me. I let go of her, wiping my tears with the sleeve of my shirt. And then I noticed. My grandfather, standing on the corridor. That blank face. That blank face. In his hand was a sickle for cutting grass. Raised high and... What? My grandmother collapsed sideways. Her face was bewildered, as if she didn't understand what had happened. But the blood gushing from her neck stained the mat. Red Eye stared at the scene in stunned silence. Poor thing. The voice snapped me out of my daze. It was my grandfather, who had just slashed her throat with the sickle. His face was blank, yet his words carried a tone of genuine pity. The realization hit me like a bolt of lightning, my mind burning with rage. Poor thing. You killed her, and you call her that? She was finally someone I... Ah! As he raised the sickle toward me, I lunged at him with all my strength. Using my size advantage, I tackled him to the ground, pinning the hand holding the sickle with my left hand. With my right, I slammed my fist into his face. A dull sound echoed as a sickening sensation and sharp pain shot through my fist. I didn't care. I raised my hand again and brought it down on his face. I kept hitting that eerie blank face, literally smashing it to pieces. Again and again. Until his face was no longer recognizable. When I came to my senses, he was completely still. The terror of what I'd done surged through me. But I couldn't stop now. If I collapsed here, I'd never move again. Get up! Move! I screamed at myself. Shakily, I stood up. I gave my right hand basic first aid, grabbed my things, and fled the house without looking back. I took buses and trains, escaping as far as I could without a clear destination. When the last train stopped running, I holed up in an internet cafe near the station to spend the night. For a while after that, I used the internet to search for information about my grandparents, and for others like me, who hadn't seen it. But after nearly a month of searching, I was faced with a brutal truth. There was no information about my grandparents at all. With a wound like that, my grandmother couldn't have survived. A murder like that in a quiet rural village should have made the news. It was unnatural that it didn't. I didn't confirm whether my grandfather was dead, but whether he was dead or in a hospital, it should have been an incident, yet nothing. The same went for the hit and run at the intersection. No trace of it anywhere. As for my search for others like me, I found a few people on forums and social media at first, but within days, or sometimes hours, their posts were deleted, or they stopped posting entirely. Some left desperate pleas for help as their final messages before vanishing. By the end of that month, all such posts had completely disappeared from the internet. What the hell? What the hell is this? In the private booth of the internet cafe, staring at a forum where the last post, a cry of, "Help me," had gone silent, I let out a weak groan. Someone, please, someone help me. I pressed my mouth against the blanket to muffle my voice and whispered in desperation. Peace. 13 years later. I'm home. As I called out while opening the front door, the door leading to the living room swung open immediately. Welcome home, Papa. Welcome home, dear. Hey. I scooped up my beloved daughter as she came running toward me with pattering steps, flashing a smile at my wife, who peeked out from the living room. My wife and daughter, greeting me after a long day at work. Just seeing the smiles of the two people I love most was enough to melt away the day's fatigue. 13 years ago, after I left my grandparents' house, I scraped by with day labor jobs, sleeping at internet cafes. From the incident with my grandparents and things I'd seen online, I learned that it must never be known by anyone. Since then, I've made sure never to mention it. Living a lie like that, I continued my life as a freeter in a new city for a few years. Eventually, my hard work at one of my part-time jobs was recognized, and I was hired as a full-time employee. A few years later, I married a junior colleague from work, and 2 years after that, our daughter was born. I haven't had any contact with my old family since then, but in this new place I found a new family. My wife, a year younger and a bit strong-willed, and our adorable 6-year-old daughter, who's in the prime of her cuteness. This small apartment, where my two most beloved people wait for me, is the haven I've found. This is my ordinary yet happy life now. Tonight's your favorite, hamburgers. Oh, awesome, that's great. And guess what? I helped make them. Whoa, really? I'm looking forward to it. By now, I rarely think about that face. Before I got married, I used to wake up startled at least once a week from dreams of my family or friends' expressionless faces staring at me. But those nightmares have stopped. I hope, with all my heart, that this peaceful daily life continues. I pray that nothing will ever again unreasonably shatter my everyday life. That's all I wish for. Let's eat. Hey, let's eat. Let's eat. So yummy. Hey, swallow before you talk. But it's so good. Come on, I said. Haha, it's fine, isn't it? That's all. That's all I wanted. And yet... Next up in the news. According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, a total solar eclipse, the first in Japan in 13 years, will be visible on Saturday, September 9th. The nightmare has returned. Calamity arrives. Why? Why is it happening again? In my head, a string of meaningless questions rises and fades. The heat drains from my body, and all my senses grow distant. In my mind, I see those expressionless faces. I feel sick, like I might vomit any second. What's a total eclipse? From somewhere far off? My daughter asks innocently. My wife answers with a warm smile. It's when the sun gets hidden by the moon and disappears. The sun hides? Exactly. That's why it gets dark like nighttime, even in the middle of the day. Really? That's so cool. A casual conversation between mother and daughter. But I can't bring myself to watch it with fondness. Because... Have you seen one, Mama? Oh yes, it's really wonderful. Wow, I can't wait. My wife is one of them. What about you, Papa? My daughter turns to me, her innocent smile beaming. I flinch, startled, as reality snaps back into focus. Forcing a smile, I say as brightly as I can, "Of course I have. It's amazing, so look forward to it." Yay! I struggle to keep my smile from faltering as she nods with sparkling eyes. What should I do? My wife will surely want our daughter to see the eclipse. But if I try to stop her, she'll realize that I haven't seen it. That can't happen. But if I let it happen, knowing what might occur, can I really let my daughter see the total eclipse? I can't. It's not certain it'll happen this time. But the possibility is high. I don't know what exactly happens when you see it. Those who've seen it can live normally as long as they don't interact with those who haven't. But what if my daughter turns into something else? I can't let that happen. Never. But then, should I just watch it with her? If I did, I wouldn't have to suffer like this anymore. I wouldn't live in fear of the people around me changing, or be struck by crushing loneliness in fleeting moments. Yes. It's just watching a total eclipse, isn't it? What am I so afraid of? I try to laugh it off, but it doesn't work. The thought of changing the moment I see it terrifies me. What if, the instant I look, the me here dies, and someone else takes over my body? The thought makes my trembling uncontrollable. What should I do? While watching my wife and daughter talk happily, keeping a smile on my face, I keep thinking endlessly about what I should do for my daughter, and for myself. Final day, Saturday. I had no choice. I had to do it this way. I desperately tried to convince myself as I gazed at my wife, slumped over the kitchen table. Huh? Is Mama asleep? Yeah, she's probably just a bit tired. I forced a smile as I answered my daughter, who tilted her head curiously. I didn't have the courage to look at it, in the end. And I couldn't bring myself to let my daughter see it either. I'm not even sure if this was truly out of concern for her. Maybe it's just my own selfish desire to keep her by my side. But that's fine. I didn't want to change, and I didn't want my daughter to change either. So, I slipped sleeping pills into my wife's breakfast. I couldn't think of any other way to safely avoid the time of the eclipse. Moo. But we were supposed to watch the total eclipse together. Well, Mama's been busy with housework and must be exhausted. Let's let her rest, okay? I glanced at the clock while calming my daughter, who was pouting with a cheap pair of Eclipse glasses in her hand, probably handed out at school. It was 8:45 a.m. The eclipse was set to begin just before 9 a.m. The total eclipse would start a little after 10 a.m., and last for about 3 minutes, according to the forecast. During that time, I absolutely couldn't let my daughter go outside or look out the window. I walked to the front door, locked it, and secured the chain for good measure. Then I closed and locked all the windows in the house and drew the curtains. "What's wrong, Papa?" My daughter looked up at me with a puzzled expression. I took a deep breath, knelt down and met her eyes directly. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I took my time explaining to her. She must not look at the total eclipse. She must not tell anyone she didn't look at it. If anyone asks whether she saw it, she should pretend she did. At first, she was full of questions and complaints, but she must have sensed something in my desperate, almost frantic demeanor, because she eventually nodded and said, "Okay." Relieved for a moment, I let out a breath. And then, it began. I was careless. I was so focused on not looking at the eclipse that I completely forgot about this. Laughter echoed from all directions. The last time, we lived in a standalone house, so it wasn't as noticeable. But now, we're in a 7-story apartment building, on the 5th floor, in a middle unit, not a corner one. Naturally, the laughter came at us from above, below, and all sides. "Hick, what's that?" My daughter's body jolted in fear at the sudden, unmistakable abnormality. Cursing myself for forgetting to prepare for the laughter, I pulled her close and hugged her tightly. Papa, I'm scared." "It's okay, cover your ears. It's going to be okay." I guided her hands to cover her ears, then placed my own hands over hers, holding her tightly. Feeling her warmth in my arms, I waited for the laughter to stop. The laughter continued. "What could possibly be so funny? It's just a total eclipse, nothing more than the sun being obscured. What was there to laugh about like that?" They were still laughing. Was it really that fun? Was it so enjoyable that they couldn't stop laughing? It started to feel like I was the strange one, cowering in fear like this. Yeah, what was I so afraid of? What was I scared of? Why couldn't I look? I couldn't remember. Oh, whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. They sound like they're having so much fun. Holding back from something that fun. What a ridiculous thing to do. I let go of my daughter and stood up. "Papa?" She looked up at me anxiously, still covering her ears, but I didn't care. Right now, more than anything else. Drawn as if by a magnet, I stumbled toward the balcony, flung the curtains aside, and opened the window. Stepping out onto the balcony, I looked up at the sky. Laughter burst from my mouth. Incredible! How wonderful! How absolutely hilarious! Why was I so afraid of something this amazing? To think I was scared of this magnificent sight for 13 years, missing out on it. It's just too absurd. But it doesn't matter anymore. I'm seeing it now. Nothing else matters. I kept laughing, laughing and laughing. I laughed and savored every moment. And when I was done savoring it, I heard a small voice from behind. "Papa?" My daughter had cracked the window open and was peeking out at me. Seeing her anxious figure, I felt the expression drain from my face. All I felt was irritation at having my joy interrupted and pity for my daughter, who hadn't shared in this incredible experience. Those emotions mixed together, stripping my face of any expression. Papa." Seeing my face, she shrank back in fear. I approached her silently, lifted her small body, and held her up high, leaning her out over the balcony railing. "Papa? No, I'm scared, I'm scared." Trembling, she glanced down briefly before quickly looking away, then up at the sky. And then, it's bright." She immediately turned her face away. Of course. It was over. The eclipse had ended, and the sun was now peeking out from behind the moon. She missed it. She missed something so wonderful. Oh, truly. Poor thing. I muttered, and I let go.